that can be solved like we just did with the quadratic and setting equal to 0, but there's an even easier way. So let's say we have p squared is equal to 100. All right, first of all, if we tried to collect like terms, there's no like terms to collect. We can move the 100 to the other side since it's a quadratic equation and get p squared minus 100 is equal to 0. Get 0 on one side, everything else on the other. Then you can try to factor, or you could use the quadratic formula. If we try to factor this trinomial, you can think what times what is p squared? Well, that would be p and p. What times what is 100? 10 times 10, or you could try 1 and 100, 2 and 50, 4 and 25. There's all sorts of things to try. But I'm going to go with 10 and 10. And since I need a negative here, we'll do a plus 10 and a minus 10. All right, now we can check to see if we factored it right. P times p is p squared. We got that. P times negative 10 is negative 10p. 10 times p is plus 10p. Those cancel out, and then 10 times negative 10 is negative 100. Okay, so that's actually the difference of squares. If you notice that you've got a perfect square here and a perfect square here, it's automatically going to factor using the square roots with a plus in one and minus in the other. Assuming that you've got a positive value for p. Okay, so now we set each of these equal to 0. So if we set p plus 10 equal to 0, you can subtract 10 from both sides, and you get p is equal to negative 10. And on the other side, if you set p minus 10 equal to 0 for this factor, add 10 to both sides, and you've got p equals positive 10. So those are our two answers, negative 10 and 10. But now I'm going to show you the quicker way that you could have solved this. You could have done it in your head and said what times what is 100? Well, either 10 times 10 works or negative 10 times negative 10. But if we take the square root of both sides here, we end up with p is equal to plus or minus 10. Now notice, if you take the square root of both sides, you need to remember to put on plus or minus, because negative 10 times negative 10 is also a positive 100. So this is something you need on your note card, is that if you square root both sides, you need to put plus or minus on your answer there. Okay. So, and of course the quadratic formula would have worked. And then there's a final way that you could solve the quadratic, and that's by looking at the graph on Desmos. So pull out, so you can see on the graph that when you have the x squared minus 100 equals 0, where is it equal to 0? At negative 10, x values of negative 10 and 10. So this is a really fast way of solving a quadratic, is once you get it to 0, put it into your graphing calculator and look at where it crosses the x-axis, because the x-axis is where y is 0, and just look at those values called the x-intercepts. Okay, now it won't always turn out to nice numbers like this, and so that's why you may have to use the quadratic formula